.NET Framework or .NET 7? Which one to choose for containerized Docker applications? The choice may look obvious, but then is it? Both these frameworks share many components, and we can also share code across these two. However, they are fundamentally different components, and which one to choose would depend on what we are trying to accomplish. Welcome to OmegaCodex, and my name is Sanal. Today, we'll look into all the points we should consider when choosing between .NET Framework and .NET 7 for containerized Docker applications. An obvious choice would seem like .NET 7, but then there are situations where that may not be the case. I'll be using terms .NET, .NET 7 and .NET Core interchangeably, by which I am referring to the current unified .NET platform. For the traditional .NET Framework, I'll still be referring it as .NET Framework. So let's get started. Before we delve into details, let's have a quick overview on what are containers. Even if you're already aware of this, I would recommend you to continue, but feel free to skip to the next chapter. So let's start with an overview on containers. Containerization in software development is a process in which an application or a service and its dependencies and configurations are packaged together as a single unit, which is also called a container image. Just like all kinds of goods are transported in containers on trucks, trains, or ships, irrespective of what is inside those containers, software containers act as a standard unit of deployment which can contain various kinds of code and various dependencies. This containerization allows us to deploy the application across environments with little or no modification. Each container can run a whole application or service like shown in this figure. Here, a Docker host has applications and services that are containerized and can run by itself in complete isolation. Another benefit of containerization is scalability. You can quickly scale out by creating new containers for short-term tasks. From an application point of view, instantiating a container image is like instantiating a process like service or a web app. So, what is Docker? Docker is an open source project which implements this containerization concept and helps in automating the deployment of these self-sufficient containers onto cloud and on-premise. Docker is also the company which evolves this technology, working in collaboration with cloud, Linux and Windows vendors. Containers can run anywhere, on-premise or on cloud like Azure. These images can run natively on Linux and Windows. However, Windows images can only run on Windows host and Linux images can run on Linux and Windows host, where host means a server or a virtual machine. If we make comparison between traditional virtual machines and Docker containers, we can see that for virtual machines there are three base layers: the infrastructure, which is the physical server, the host operating system and hypervisor. On top of that, each VM has its own operating system and its libraries. For Docker, the host server only has infrastructure and the host operating system. On top of that, the container engine keeps the containers isolated but shares the same operating system. Since the container requires fewer resources, they are easy to deploy and they start up fast. This allows running more services on the same hardware, thus reducing costs. Now that we have covered a brief overview on containers and Docker, let's come back to the main question. Which one to choose for containerized Docker applications? Let's break it into a set of 4 questions. The answer to these questions should help you decide which framework or platform to use. The first one is, are you developing an application that can run on multiple platforms? Or at least that's an option you want to keep open for future. If that's a goal you want to address, then .NET 7 is the right choice. .NET 7 also supports Mac OS as a development platform. However, when you deploy these containers to Docker, the host must be based on Linux or Windows. The image required for .NET 7 is far smaller than what is required for .NET Framework. And in contrast to use .NET Framework, you have to base your image on Windows Server Core, which is a lot heavier in comparison to the Windows Nano Server which you can use with .NET 7. And of course, you will be restricted to Windows with .NET Framework. Question number 2. Are you migrating an existing application or is it a new project? Containers are used in conjunction with microservice architecture. although they can be used to containerize applications that use any kind of architectural pattern. The modularity and lightweight nature of .NET 7 makes it ideal for containers and microservice architecture. If it's a new project, then the obvious choice should be .NET 7. And if you are new here, the obvious step would be to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on new videos. And it also keeps me motivated to create new content. When your system needs the best possible density, granularity, and performance, .NET 7 with ASP.NET Core is your best option. ASP.NET Core is 10 times faster than ASP.NET with .NET Framework. As I said earlier, with .NET 7 you also get the benefit of being cross-platform, and the image required for such an application is far smaller in size. If you have an existing application on .NET 7, then also you can go ahead and use .NET 7 on containers. If you have an existing app on .NET Framework and you want to move it to Docker so that you can improve your DevOps workflow, then an obvious choice would be to use Docker with Windows containers for your .NET Framework application. Using containers in this case can give you a better isolated test environment and also eliminate deployment issues caused by missing dependencies when you move to production. In most cases, you will not need to migrate your application to .NET 7. You can very well use containers with traditional .NET Framework. However, if you can port to .NET 7, nothing better than that. Also, whenever you are creating new services to extend your application, I would recommend creating those services in .NET 7 and deploy them with .NET 7 containers. Third question, are you using any third-party libraries or NuGet packages that are not available for .NET 7 yet? Third-party libraries on .NET have been embracing the .NET standard, which enables them to share code across different .NET flavors. With .NET Standard 2.0 and later, the API compatibility across different frameworks have become significantly larger. However, even with this, there are cases where certain packages need Windows to run and might not support .NET Core or later. If those packages are critical to your application, then you have no choice but to use .NET Framework with Windows containers. Question number 4. Are you using .NET technologies that are not available on .NET 7? Some of the technologies which are available on .NET Framework are not available in .NET 7. Some of them may be released in later versions of .NET, but others may not fit the pattern aligned to .NET Core and may never be available. For example, ASP.NET Web Forms is only available on .NET Framework, and there are no plans to bring it onto .NET. Another example is workflow related services like Windows Workflow Foundation and Workflow Services with WCF and Workflow Foundation. These are also available only on .NET Framework, and there are no plans to bring it to .NET. In such cases, you would need to go ahead with .NET Framework on Windows containers. .NET Core or .NET as we call it now is a major step forward from .NET Framework. It offers a lot of advantages in comparison to .NET Framework, from productivity to performance, and it also has cross-platform support. If you have the time and resources available, you should always consider porting your .NET Framework application to .NET, which can reap you more benefits with containerization. If you plan to use Windows Host for Docker, you have two options: Windows Server Core and Windows Nano Server. When developing applications on .NET Framework, you have to use Windows Server Core, which is compatible with legacy apps and IIS, but then it has a larger image. When developing applications on .NET 7, you can use Windows Nano Server, which is cloud optimized, works on Kestrel, and is smaller and faster. You can also use Linux hosts with .NET 7 supporting Debian, Alpine, or others. The decision comes down to what kind of application you have and what dependencies it has. As I initially said, the choice may look obvious, but then we need to do a deeper analysis on our application and then decide a specific target and specific version. I hope this video was useful and I was able to give you some new insights. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts about it. Feel free to share any other points you think we should consider when choosing between .NET Framework and .NET 7 for Docker applications. The book suggestion for today is this: the Docker book, Containerization is the New Virtualization. It's written by James Turnbull. It's an excellent resource for anyone who is new to Docker, and it covers everything from basics to advanced topics. The link is available in the description box below. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this content, then please don't forget to like the video so that it gets suggested to other like-minded people. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Adios.